Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach, brought to you by the TeacherCast Educational Network. If you are in charge of professional development and looking to build an innovative digital learning experience, this is the podcast for you. Join us each week as we uncover strategies that tech coaches are using to drive their digital transformations one classroom at a time. And now for your host, with over 2 decades of experience working with tech coaches and ed tech companies from all around the world, Jeff Bradbury.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Ask the Tech Coach podcast, episode number 171. I hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving break for those in the United States of America. And today we are back. We are talking all about ISTE standards, something that is, I guess you could say it's important. Things that we talk about here today are going to be standards for students, standards for leaderships, and absolutely we're going to be talking about the ISTE standards for coaches. I want to know what you guys think about the ISTE standards, how you're incorporating them, if you're incorporating them, and how that is all working out in your district. I want to bring on my instructional coaching co-host tonight, Miss Susan Vincent. Sue, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
I am great, and I'm stuffed after a wonderful, relaxing, long Thanksgiving weekend, but it's glad to be back, ready for that push toward these 3 weeks before Christmas, which are always busy.
Oh my goodness, we are looking forward to it, and the one thing that I love about this time of year is, for me, this is when the coaching kicks up. You know, as a music teacher for 20 years, we always had this theory that when the teachers don't want to work, this is when the music department goes in. We're doing our concerts, Absolutely. We're doing our assemblies, we're getting extra lessons and nighttime rehearsals. This is when we shine. And you know, I don't want to make light of it, but these are the days where the teachers just kind of are stressed. They've got conferences, they've got grades, report, you know. This is when I go to the teachers and say, please let me play with your students.
Yes, and then they love it.
I the other day, Sue, you'll be proud of me, I did 7 sessions in one day. And it was great. I blanketed the 4th grade. They're doing a project all about animals. And I showed all the 4th grade teachers. I'll stop there. 4th grade teachers, right? Their students happen to be with them, but I showed the 4th grade teachers on Google Docs how to do citations, right? You go to tools, citations, and it drops down that wonderful form.
That's awesome.
And they're like, oh, this is great.
I'm so proud of you, Jeff, getting into those elementary classrooms.
I got into those elementary classrooms, and then I did a 2-day lesson with a couple 3rd grade teachers. We drew turkeys using shapes, circles, squares, triangles, and a trapezoid. And then the next day we came back and we built those turkeys in Google Slides. And the idea was just to show people that, look, you know, I'm not the tech guy. I'm like, we draw it out first and then we build. And when we're looking at the slides, we were doing things like rotating and grouping and layers and arranging and changing the color and gradients and, you know. And the hard part, Sue, comes next, right? It's now the students have those skills. How do you get back into those classrooms?
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm excited about this topic today, right? Today, we're talking about the ISTE standards. How do we bring this up? How do we make sure teachers know that these things exist? I can't go to my teacher and say, I need to come back tomorrow. Didn't you know that ISTE standards for students number 2 is digital citizenship, right? I can't do that. So it's a hard topic to talk about. And because it's a hard topic, Sue, we brought on an expert today.
We did, and I'm so excited to hear from her.
I want to welcome a middle school technology integration and support specialist. She's got more words in the title than we do here, Sue. And not only is that, she's a former LMS, which doesn't mean she's a learning management system. That is a different thing, although I keep getting that all messed up. And everybody in their car just smacked themselves in the forehead when I said that. Now, I think that this is a really wonderful combination. I know on TeacherCast, we're working on these blog posts all about technology integration plans, and there is going to be one about why is it important that your coach and your LMS be aligned and working together and really here we have an amazing guest who actually is her own best friend.
Yes.
I am so excited to bring on Jenna Sinelli. Jenna, how are you today? Welcome to Ask the Tech Coach.
Hi, everybody. I'm doing great. It's been a great Thanksgiving being my favorite holiday because it's just about food, family, friends, no worry about gift giving. But I'm here and ready to talk about the ISTE standards and the trials and tribulations of, tech coaching and, working with these teachers.
Talk to us a little bit about where things are. You and I aren't that far apart in Connecticut. What does your program look like? How many buildings? Technology integration and support specialist. That's TI. You're a TIS.
TIS. Yeah, that's we're referred to as the TISs. And there's a TIS in each building.
Is there a TISter? I'm so sorry, guys. That's the leftovers talking.
But my district, we moved from library media specialist to now having technology integration support specialist, and most of us actually are the former LMSs. So it's actually even great because a lot of us have that whole experience that we took with us when we transitioned to these positions. What I've seen so far this year is now that we're one-to-one, and now that everybody post-COVID has now been sort of forced into digital learning and digital learning platforms like Google Classroom, it's opened up a whole new host of digital citizenship issues that we haven't seen before. For example, when years past, I was a library media specialist for many, at least 6 years before I did this TIS position. And people always thought of a digital citizenship as, just cyberbullying and digital footprint. And it goes so much further than that. And now that we've gone into the digital realm to more, how do I conduct myself on a digital platform? How do I communicate professionally with my instructor? And how do I, collaborate, professionally with my colleagues? And I only had one teacher in my building actually sought me out, which was amazing. And she said, you did that lesson on emails last year with my classes. Can you come in? Because they're on Google Classroom. They don't know how to speak. They don't know how to address me. They don't know how to talk to each other. Can you just come? And I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you very much, because this was a dream to me, because I kind of, in the first year of the position, I kind of felt like the Genius Bar. And I kind of really wanted to get the coaching aspect of the position more at the forefront, because I started just feeling like IT support, and that's all I was doing. And it was like, so this year, that was my goal. And I'm slowly but surely making those baby steps. And you're right, people are starting to seek me out more now in this time of year. So
I got to ask the question. We missed something from your bio, but I wanted to bring it up here because I feel it's important. How is the coaching position similar or different to being a lawyer? You have both in your resume.
Yes, I was a lawyer for 8 years in New York City. The most miserable 8 years of my life.
And now you're an instructional coach.
Yeah. and it's funny because this is the longest career I've ever had. Prior to that, I grew up in LA, and I was a theater major in college, tried the acting thing, worked in the entertainment industry, and then I went to law school. But the research and writing piece was pretty much what led me to the LMS. I always wanted to be a teacher, and I taught second grade for a couple years. And then I did the ARC program for LMS, and it was just a natural transition because my strengths as a lawyer was the research and writing piece and the critical thinking. And the best things I love to do is to write an appellate brief or write a motion or look up cases that just eviscerated the other side's argument. And, I was much better on paper than I was in court.
So gathering all those resources came in handy for your LMS and on into the coaching job for teachers.
Exactly.
That is awesome how that's just kind of flowed together like that.
Yeah, because people ask, well, how did you realize you wanted to be an LMS? And I was like, it just sort of, got to that piece. I was like, it sort of went that way, where I was like, you know what, that was always my strength as a lawyer. This dovetails nicely. So that was the only piece I liked.
So let's set this up for everybody. We are in a leadership class together at our grad school. And the other night we were having our class all about technology. It was technology night and I loved it.
Yes, it's our favorite.
And right. It was by far my favorite class. And if you're listening, we love you, Dr. Pirelli.
We love Dr. Pirelli.
And the whole topic basically revolved around the ISTE standards, and I loved our breakouts because it was just dealing with how do you implement them, how do you bring them up, and we talked about the student standards, the leadership standards, and tonight we're going to add the coaching standards. But let's just kind of have this conversation here, and if you're out there listening, we would love to hear from you on this. You can find us on Twitter at Ask the Tech Coach. Head on over to askthetechcoach.com, join our Tech Coaches Network. Lots of great conversations on this over there. And we want to say thank you and happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays to everybody that's in our Tech Coaches Network. We're here each and every Monday for you guys. I'm just going to throw the big question out. Are the ISTE standards for technology important, and why?
Well, for me, I'll start and then I'll throw it to Jenna to expound. For me, when I first learned about the ISTE standards 15 years ago, when I started in a tech coach, instructional coach position, that's what helped guide me to learn what I was doing. It wasn't even necessarily to figure out what the teachers and students needed to be doing. It was for me to figure out, what do I need to use in order to learn how to guide these teachers in integrating technology in their classroom and coming to me to use me for what I'm there for. So for me, at the beginning, they were a guiding piece. Now that's evolved through the years as I've become, I guess you could call a veteran at this role. And that's a lot of what we're going to delve deeper into during this conversation, I hope. So they started out for me very important as a guide for my own self. So if you are new to the tech coaching position out there, I encourage you to take a look at them. I'm going to throw the ball over to Jenna now and get her take on that question.
Yeah, I became aware of these two standards as a baby LMS when people are like, you have to go to ISTE. Try to get to your, everybody, you got to go to ISTE. I've still never been to ISTE. And that's like one of my goals is to actually get out there one of these days. And I took a look at the standards and I'm like, this is stuff I'm already kind of doing. Like, you know what I mean? In this job. So it was like, and this is when I was a media specialist, that was my goal, especially the knowledge constructor and curating the resources. And we had our 8th graders usually work on a capstone project where they research an issue and they find sources to support that issue and their stance on the issue and things like that. It's like that. I always felt in the middle school level that I was the bridge between what was expected of them, what they came to me with elementary, and then what was expected of them to high school. And I needed to bridge that so that, they were when they got to high school, that they were able to do these things, that the higher level of critical thinking and, knowledge gathering that they needed. So that's the biggest piece for me.
If we look at the ISTE standards for students, okay, let's kind of break down these here, but you have empowered learner, digital citizen, knowledge constructor, innovative designer, computational thinker, creative communicator, and global collaborator. And Jenna just picked up. She says, when I teach, this is just what we do.
Yeah, that's best practice.
But that's not the same for everybody. So as a coach, one of the questions that we discussed the other night in class is, how do we bring these up? Is it our job as coaches to bring this up? Are the ISTE standards essential? Are they something that the principal should be championing? I'm going to always get this word wrong. Championing. Encouraging.
Championing.
That's the one. Who's ultimately responsible for the students knowing these standards? Jenna, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's ultimately our job, but to guide, but the instructional piece goes to the teacher. And my take on it is, I think as a coach that you have to sort of couch it in in a way that, like, when I sit down with the teacher, it's always, tell me what your instruction looks like. Take me through a typical class. Like, what do the students do when they first come in? What, just the sort of general structure. And then I sort of push the tech piece do the back way. Like, you know what I mean? Okay, like, what's your challenge? Well, I'm having a hard time. For example, I had a PE teacher who was having a difficult time when the students first came in and taking attendance and things like that. I'm like, okay. So let's do, so I came up with a couple of different strategies and ideas using some tech pieces to help her. So it's kind of like, here's the airplane, you're trying to feed your kid, like, kind of,
I got to push back on you lovingly.
Yeah.
You just said it's our job as coaches to make sure that the students are meeting the ISTE standards for students, but we are not the teachers.
No, not that they're meeting them, but that it's our job to lay it out there. Like, here's the house.
But we're not the administrators. We're not required. Because my other question I wanted to bring up on this is, if our teachers are not being asked to include ISTE standards on their lesson plans, that's not our fault.
Yeah,
that's not our job.
Yeah,
we are not not responsible for making sure that the students are meeting we're here to help. But when I meet with a teacher, if I get to it, I'll say, hey, is this gonna meet this? I mean, I'm not at the point I've never in 10 years of being a coach been able to whip out the ISTE standards and say, are you doing this? I feel like I'd have my head chopped off in that.
Yeah. No, I think it's more I think the principal has to sort of spearhead the effort. Like, it's because I would never tell a fellow colleague, you have to do this, you have to do that, but it's more like, here I'm sort of the guide. You know what I mean? It's, these are, I'm your guide along the way, kind of like a Sherpa on Mount Everest. Like, you know what I mean? Let me help you,
So what's your take on this? I think there's a difference between, in the back of your mind, what they are, and as you're working with a teacher, you're trying to check off some fictional, some invisible boxes. And there's a difference between saying, Sue, this is standard 6. You're not, you're not putting it in front of the teacher, but you're trying to go through the process. So now, Sue, I would think it's fair to say Sue works in a smaller district than both of ours.
Yeah.
Sue, you probably have more ability to affect change, where I've got 20 buildings, and I know, Jenna, you've got a bunch of buildings in your district, right?
Yep.
So how do you handle these topics? Do you have a checklist in your mind when you're working with teachers, or do you say you're not bringing knowledge constructor into your lesson, Mr. Teacher, right? Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I kind of have it in my mind, and I'll concentrate more on the 4 C's part of the ISTE stuff a lot, and I'll kind of champion that. And with the support, I'm part of the curriculum department, so with the support of my boss, and I say that a lot of times, I'll say the 4 C's. I'll say, hey, you're doing a great job at this. And I'll refer to the ISTE standards as much as I can. I don't beat them over the head with it or say, like we were just alluding to, you're not doing this.
Yeah.
Because until that principal who is ultimately checking the lesson plans and making sure that they're covering what they need to, I can't just go in there and say, this is what you should be doing. But I can try to encourage it, like Jenna said, kind of through the back door in a lot of ways, and use the terminology. Whether they know it's an ISTE standard or not, using the terminology in there as best as possible is how I approach things.
A lot of the ISTE student standards, I think for us, these are the no-brainers, right? Like, if I look at global collaborator, that's a scary term, but when you read the bullet points, students use digital tools by collaborating with others and working in teams. So global collaborator doesn't mean I need to go find somebody in Arkansas.
Yeah.
It could be Sue and I and Jenna are going to write something on a Google Doc and share it with each other.
Yeah.
Good. 1.7 check, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes getting a teacher to go in that direction is difficult, though. But that's our job.
Yes.
Like that.
There's the same, like with when Common Core was first introduced, and that like it's sort of not almost the same pushback, but like you're kind of the teacher's freaking out and going, but you're already doing this, like
Right.
you're already teaching this stuff. You know,
it's not difficult, right? Like and so what is it, right? Is it a matter of us saying, hey, Sue, you're not meeting 1.7, or is it saying, Sue, we're working on this animal project. What if another student shared their project with another student and they work together on it? And you go, check.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. 1.7, right? Like now we're in there. And, innovative designer. Students use a variety of technologies, could be anything, in the design process to solve problems by creating new solutions. Well, welcome to computer science and, computer science month. Here we are, right? Did we do that?
Coming up.
Check. So, I mean, I'm still wrestling with this, right? Whose responsibility does this fall on? Is it on our shoulders as coaches? Is it on the administrators? Is it on central office? I remember during our class, Jenna, it was mentioned that somebody in central office should be the ultimate person of who is making sure that we're meeting the ISTE standards. Is that the is that your chief academic officer? Is that your chief technology officer? Is that the head of coaches? Like, where does the buck stop?
We actually are very fortunate that my central office this year hired a position just like that he oversees the TISs. He's the go-between between us and IT.
That's funny. Sorry.
And it's actually a blessing because he's been able to, have a long-range technology plan, in place and like it's been nice because we've never really had that sort of content leader, for lack of a better word. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody in central office that sort of, guiding our huge TIS ship,
I'm going to leave that alone. Now, let's shift a little bit here because in addition to student standards, we have standards for educators,
yes.
Right? And again, there's 7. They do line up. I'm a learner, I'm a leader, I'm a citizen, I'm a collaborator, I'm a designer, I'm a facilitator, I'm an analyst. I noticed there's smaller words. There's only one word as opposed to like digital citizenship. There's 2 words for the students. But what is an educator standard for, right? Is this now on my shoulders? I, as the coach, am making sure that the teacher is doing this, but I'm not in control of another adult. So who's in charge of making sure that the educator standards?
Yeah, and this is the difficulty of the position because I always refer to it as quasi-administrative because
Correct.
it's like you straddle both sides of the fence, and it's very difficult because it's like you're not technically. I'm not an administrator's unit, and like you know what I mean. I'm not.
Now let's be clear here. These are not technology standards, right? So if I look at collaborator, I'll just read it word for word here. Educators dedicate time to collaborate with both colleagues and students to improve practice, discover and share resources and ideas, and solve problems. It does not say with a computer.
And technically, if they're working as a grade level team or a content area team, they hopefully are on the right track, or even working with you as an instructional or tech coach. Hopefully they're on the track, doing that.
I mean, most of these are best like with the students are best practices anyway. Like
right. And if you look at 2.7 here, educators understand and use data to drive instruction to support students in achieving their learning goals. Again, it doesn't say I'm learning how to make a spreadsheet. It just says I'm using data to make decisions for future activities and uses. I mean, really, I'm looking at the word technology only shows up twice.
Wow, that's an interesting point.
Right? So facilitator, educators facilitate learning with technology. Okay, I have a Chromebook with me, right? Like I'm using a Google Doc or something in there. And then, educators continually improve their practice by learning from and with others and exploring proven and promising practices that leverage technology to improve student learning. That's the first one as a learner. So in other words, that's like the PD standard. I'm learning how to do this through the use of, really, we are the 2.1 standard. Like they're coming to us or they're working with us to meet their 2.1. Number 2 here, leaders seek out opportunities for leadership to support student empowerment. That's personal preference. It really should be, right? That's the motivation standard, I would say. And then the last one here is, citizenship. Educators inspire students to contribute responsibly in their digital world. That's be a teacher, right?
Yeah. That's just straight up good teaching.
So, I feel like the coaches are here to coach these things. They're not here to check off. It's not my job to go to the principal and say, Sue's not meeting standard number 2.5.
Yeah. Because we're not acting in that supervisory or evaluative capacity. What we do is not supervisory or evaluative at all. Like when I started coaching cycles, I made sure I'm like, this is non-evaluative. This is, for your benefit. I'm here to help you, because sometimes a lot of teachers, when they get thrown in, they get very touchy with that, as far as they think when you're anybody coming in and anybody checking out what they're doing is sort of, or trying to tell them what to do. It's a delicate dance, being in this position.
Sue, where are you with all this? I know you straddle both the students and the teachers, and you've got some leadership capabilities going on. Like, what's happening in Kentucky these days?
Yeah, that's just where we kind of have to tread, thin water and, approach our role as effectively and efficiently as possible to, still be a guider for the teachers and be there for them to provide the resources that they need. And kind of like I said earlier, use the terminology without just beating them over the head with ISTE standards. That's, in my experience, the principal's job. Now, when we meet with those administrators ourselves as a coach, that's where we can encourage the administrators to help promote them. Then we can, in turn, come back in behind and support those teachers again with what the principal is hopefully asking them to do from the other conversation you as a coach had with the principal. So it's just a fine line to tread, and through experience, it kind of all comes together. I talked about how, I just used them to learn for myself at the beginning, and now the terminology is just second nature, and that's how I guide the teachers.
Talking today all about the ISTE standards for students, ISTE standards for educators. We would love to hear from you guys. Please do us a favor. Find us over on Twitter at Ask the Tech Coach. And I want to pause here because I need to say thank you to some of our listeners. Sue, I don't know if we had a chance to talk about this yet, but the other day I got a text from one of our listeners. His name's Alfonso, and he shared with me a link to one of his grad classes. And, over the last couple weeks, we've been doing a lot of shows, episodes, and I've been putting out a lot of blog posts that are supporting my administrative internship project. And basically, my internship project is to come up with a way to create a dynamic instructional coaching program. And we're doing a whole 12-step program. It's going to be launched soon. But I've been putting out blog post after blog post as it's there. And then the second half of my intern project is, how do we know that we're being effective as coaches? How do you know that the work, the money, the finance, the all of this stuff is actually showing up in the metrics, right? And I just happened, and I don't check the Twitters a lot, believe it or not, but I just happened to check it like an hour after he sent me a thing. And he's like, dude, I just wanted to let you know, in my doctoral program, and I think he's in Texas, we've actually been going through 2 of your blog posts. And I'm sitting there reading this thing going, that's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
And he sent me a link to his professor's blog, and there's my post. And underneath, and Jenna, you'll like this because we do this for our class. Yeah. There is a mile long of threads and conversations, not necessarily about my but on the topic of EdTech integration plans. And this was for 2 of my blog posts.
That is awesome. You hadn't told me about that. That is great.
So I'm so excited that the work that we're doing here is getting out.
Yes,
I'm
thank
excited
you
for all
all
that
for listening
and I'll be if you're listening, I'll be emailing him this week and just trying to connect, and maybe we'll have him on the show, because I was floored, right? Like, we do this great show here, and you never know who's listening, and you turn around and go, oh, our work is being used by a doctoral program. That's kind of cool. So I want to say thank you guys. Please don't forget to share this. Let us know you're using this stuff. You know, a lot of the stuff that we do here is personal to our jobs, and a lot of it is therapy for our jobs. But we are here for you. We drop this show every single Monday. Sometimes we do 1 episode a week, and we do 3 episodes sometimes too. So I hope you guys are getting something out of it. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and please share this with your friends. I've noticed in the last few weeks, our downloads, our analytics have skyrocketed. So we must be doing something right after 170 episodes. So thank you guys for all of that. I want to wrap up today with 2 more standards. I noticed that the ISTE standards for students, there's 7 of them. The ISTE standards for teachers, there's 7 of them. If you look at the next spot here, it's the ISTE standards for education leaders. There's 5 of them, right? Equity and citizenship advocate, visionary planner, empowering leader, systems designer, and connected learner. And again, these aren't technology standards. These are leadership standards. Jenna, we've been studying in our class the Connecticut Standards for Leadership. I'm not going to embarrass myself, because I don't want my professor to know that at this point in our semester I can't name them all off the top of my head. But
same here.
I was gonna let you do that. But what are you thinking about these education leadership standards? A lot of these are, of course they're doing this. Of course they're using,
again, it's very much similar to the ones that in our state, are the standards for leaders. And it's, again, good leadership. Leaders have vision, leaders, design systems. They make the engine go. They make the connection to the community, and they empower their staff. So again, these are all tenets of good leadership.
I want to add another one though. I want to do 3.6. Wise use of coaching staff. Are you doing all these things? Are you making use of this? Because it's just so important that our leaders know that these are standards for them. A lot of them, again, they're doing it, right? So visionary planner, leaders engage others in establishing a vision, a strategic plan, and ongoing evaluation cycle for transforming learning, here it comes, with technology.
Education leaders.
And we talked about that last night, or we talked about that at our class the other day, right? It's with technology, or sometimes we say through technology. It's not we're doing all of this and we use technology. It's we're using the technology to make our lives easier. And
impactful technology use. It has
efficiency.
To be yes. Oh, yeah. Jeff, you said yesterday in class, I tell them I'm an efficiency coach, and I was like, I'm stealing that. I'm like, that's the best line I've heard.
It's so true, right? We are here to use this. Sue, how do you, we've used the phrase efficiency coach here. How do you explain your role to your administrator or to other administrators when you go to the conferences and stuff? I am that does, how do you do this?
Well, efficiency is a word that I tend to lean on and use at various places, depending on who I'm talking to, because with technology, through technology, I help make teachers more efficient teachers, because I can give them the tools on a digital screen to more efficiently lesson plan, more efficiently present their lesson, what have you. So that's a huge word I've used over the years.
Jenna, if you and I met in the corner and you said, I am this and I do this, How do you explain yourself to other school leaders at your own school leaders or at conferences or, in class?
I always, I am the technology integrator and I'm here to help you. Like that's, I sent an email to my staff the other day with refreshing them. I screenshotted my slide of what your tech coach can do for you. And I said, please don't forget, these are the things I can do for you, and my list of services, my menu of services, as I like to call it. So I'm here for you. I'm here to help you. Like, how can I help?
And we have this ability to help. We have this ability to transform another staff member because we're guided by the ISTE standards for coaches. And we're back to 7. Change agent, connected learner, collaborator, learning designer, professional learning facilitator, data-driven decision maker, and digital citizen advocate. They sound familiar, right? Like they sound like they're the students and the teachers and the leadership all had a set of triplets, and here it is, right? Like, and they're similar.
Edu triplets.
If they had their own edu tech triplets. But if I'm looking here, professional learning facilitator, it says coaches plan, provide, and evaluate. Not a lot of people hit that last one. The impact of professional learning for educators and leaders to use technology and advanced teaching and learning. What are we talking about on this whole ed tech integration road that I'm on right now? How do we make individualized professional development for every single heartbeat in this school?
Yes.
For teachers, for office workers, for paras, for your superintendent. It is ISTE standard 4.5, planning, providing, and evaluating for educators and leaders. It's all right there.
Right there.
Are we following them? Is this like we've talked earlier that says if you're just doing your job, your teacher should be hitting most of these. If you're just doing your job, your teacher should be having your students do most of these. Are these the standards where if you say to a coach, if you're doing your job, you're going to hit all of these? Is every coach planning and providing professional development, but are they evaluating the impact? And that's essentially my intern project is how do you know that this is working?
Yeah. And that's a good point. It's a lot of sometimes it's our impact is not truly assessed. We can see it anecdotally, where a teacher will stop. Oh, that tip you gave or, that advice you gave me, it's made such a huge difference. I've been able to do X, Y, Z so much easier or whatever, but there's not like a hard data set that we can look at and say, and I would hate to use just, test scores and all that stuff to measure our impact. It goes deeper than that.
4.6, data-driven decision maker, right? There's 2 hyphens in there. Coaches model and support the use of qualitative and quantitative data to inform their own instruction and professional learning. I'm going to stop right here and say for the last 2 months, I've been working with my coaches on creating data dashboards. So that way, every time we have, daily interactions with teachers, we can check off, I met with Sue, we met for 20 minutes, we had this topic, these are the things that came out of it. And at the end, we've got charts and graphs coming out of 2 wazoos. It's a lot. Yeah. But it doesn't take a lot of time to fill out the form. And at the end of the day, I can say, oh, look, Sue and I worked together for this. And it's here. And yes, there's a full blog post on that right now on TeacherCast, and there'll be plenty more in the next few weeks. So how do you do all that stuff? It's all right here. It's following the ISTE standards.
Like we said earlier, they're just best practice anyway. And, and even the most veteran ones of us may not be following all of them effectively. We should be, and that should be our goal, is to strive to follow these, to be the best leader, the best coach, and teachers in turn to be the best teacher, and so on.
Sue, I know I've asked you this before, but how are you collecting, if you're collecting data? We have a daily teacher interaction form. I know there's a lot of coaches that believe I'm going to fill up my calendar so I can see how busy I am. But is that collecting data? Or is that just filling in boxes in a calendar, right? So Sue and Jenna, you're next. How do you use data or data to make decisions, to collect information, to show what you're worth? Busy? What's the right words there?
Well, currently, I guess I'm more of a calendar user. I have it there on my calendar. It's documented who I've met with, and I try to write out as much as possible. I'm not your hard-nosed number data person, though I do have an awesome colleague for that. And he is great with data, and we've had those conversations before. So I'm not hard-nosed at filling out a form every time. I've tried that in the past, and then I just don't always follow through. So I'm more of an anecdotal person myself, and keeping it on my calendar to know who I've worked with. And then if the conversation comes back up or I need to show evidence of here's what I did.
Jenno, how about you? What do you, or what does your group do? How do you, where do the numbers fit in? This is not a topic that a lot of new coaches deal with. Like when you're new to the coaching, you just get in there and you get your elbows wet and you're running, and then you turn around and go, what have I done? Where have I done it? And data usually comes second for the newbie. Where do you see data? How are you collecting data in your district?
For me, at my school, I use the calendar as well. And, I have teachers sign up. I send my appointment slots for the next week, and the teachers sign up with what they need help with. And then also it's on the fly. Like I'll get stopped in the hall, or I'll get a text, or, and so it's not, like I said, like with Sue, it's not real hard data that I'm collecting. It's very anecdotal, and me constantly walking the halls and, peeking, kind of keeping my ear out and, I helped so-and-so with that the other day. Let me just take a peek in and see how it's going, So it's very much the anecdotal. And I think I always have a goal for myself. This is like the second year of my position. So next year, that's another piece that I would like to add, is to measure, you're right, how am I doing, versus me just collecting the data in my head of like, I could see, what I could see and what I can observe, but actually something, I can look at.
I think this is a topic that's certainly worth exploring. I'm looking forward to, in just a few weeks, in February, I'm going to be out at the NCCE conference in Seattle. I believe that's going to be February 2 through 5 or somewhere is that first week in February. And we're going to be actually doing not one, but two coaching network sessions. I've got a 1 hour called What Does a Tech Coach Do? And I love that session because I don't have anything really to answer on that. It's a wonderful conversation. I love getting people in, and we just kind of just go and say, Jenna, what do you do? Sue, what do you do? And then the conversation kind of takes over. And then that leads us into a 2 hour hands-on workshop where we're going to be discussing these very things. I highly recommend you guys check it out if you're in the Seattle area, ncce.org. I'm actually doing like 10 or 12 sessions out there on Microsoft tools, Google tools, coaching tools, podcasting things. Excuse me. Lots of great stuff going on there. So check all that stuff out over at ncce.org. We certainly hope that you guys have a chance to check that out. Jenna, I know at the time that we're recording this, we still have a few more weeks to go in our leadership. I got to ask this question here, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
I hope Dr. Pirelli is listening, because this is what I've been thinking about with her class constantly. How is introduction to leadership? How are these, we're talking broad leadership things. Mm-hmm. And it's a class for people who want to be principals, want to be, quote, educational leaders, which, as a coach, you are, but you're a secondary, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not the guy, you're under.
Yes.
How is this class helping you become a better coach? And so I know you're not in the class, but I'm going to ask you the same thing. Like, how does leadership classes help us in our coaching world?
It's helped me with the vision piece and the goal setting piece. I never really thought of that piece in my position. So that's that's what hit for me in these classes is having a vision for my job and a goal for my job, rather than I'm just here to help, if, people figure out how to use Google. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the overall big picture of my job? So I think that as a technology leader, because I never really thought of myself as that. One of the teachers said her classes the other day when I was helping them, that she's the administrator in charge of technology. And I'm like, easy there. I'm like, I'm the tech integrator and the tech, leader. But, I was like, well, yeah, I guess I am kind of the leader because I'm leading this sort of charge in this new, post-COVID digital learning world that we're all in.
But you're only the leader if you're given that opportunity. See, when you say the administrator in charge of technology, I think of my guy sitting in the back with the headphones on and the long hair, and he's the network. Like, he's administrating.
Yes, like a network administrator. Yeah.
No. I'm here helping people.
Yeah.
And there is a shift. Sue, what do you think about all this stuff? I mean, you and I have talked all semester. You kind of been up to date on what's going on in leadership classes, but how are coaches leaders this is another podcast topic, so buckle up, right? But how can a coach see themselves, be looked at, be thought about in their building as a leader?
Oh, absolutely. As a tech coach, you're a leader. Just getting yourself out there and learning from other coaches, getting yourself out there, learning at conferences, learning from each other. Like, Jeff and I do, as he shares what he's learning and I share what I'm doing, collaborating with each other. That's huge. Just getting yourself out there and then sharing on Twitter, sharing in your PLNs, making video, get a YouTube channel, start sharing globally, just like the ISTE standards tell you to do, bringing that into your school. And for me, getting myself out there, statewide, nationally, internationally, whatever, that's brought me more respect from my school leaders above me and given me a lot more credibility in my day-to-day position.
I would love to hear what you guys think out there. If this topic resonates, if this topic is interesting, let us know. I know I'd love to do a few more shows on this very topic. Mm-hmm. It is such important. It's not one that we really hit in 170 episodes. Jenna, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing this.
No problem. My very first podcast I've ever been on. So
awesome job.
Yay. Well, we certainly want to say thank you. Where can people learn more about the great things that you're doing?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mrs. Sinelli LMS. I'm still LMS at heart. So.
And we will make sure that we have the links to all of that stuff in this. This is Ask the Tech Coach episode 171. And Sue, I wanted to surprise you. It's the holiday season. I know you're an LMS at heart and you're a coach at heart. It's nice to have a lot of great things happening in the world of LMSs and coaches. And, we are going to be doing a show soon of how does the coach and the LMS come together. Jenna, please come back on for that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm down for that. So.
Sue, what are you doing these days? I saw some great YouTube videos popping out.
Yes, I've been working on some Screencastify stuff. They've got some awesome new features out there. So check my YouTube channel over at Susan Vincent's Tech Imaginations over on YouTube, and the interactive question feature and the watch page of Screencastify. Go check out those new videos.
I'm going to pass those to my staff because I just did that as a tech tip this past week, the check for understanding thing. So definitely I'll pass that along. That's cool.
I hope you guys have a chance to check that out. And if you guys are in a doctoral program, please share these posts with other people. It is really, really nice to hear from you guys. That wraps up this episode of Ask the Tech Coach, episode number 171, talking all about the ISTE standards. Thank you guys for joining us on behalf of Jenna and Sue and everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.
You've been listening to Ask the Tech Coach, hosted by Jeff Bradbury of the TeacherCast Educational Network. Please reach out to the show with all of your questions on Twitter at AskTheTechCoach or online at www.askthetechcoach.com. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And please take a moment to write a review in the App Store.